Hello, I am the H-Town Vet, and I would like to welcome you to our channel, a place where we will discuss the variety of benefits available to veterans and their dependents. Today's topic, how to protect your VA compensation from garnishment and reduction. The 5 topics we will cover today will include non-VA debt, VA debt, family obligations, rating reductions, and situations where your VA compensation is stopped altogether. As a disabled veteran receiving compensation, you are a target. You are a target to people that you owe and to others that you don't owe. Because of federal regulations, there are several laws in place to protect your VA compensation. Number 1, non-VA debt. This includes creditors or anyone that you may owe money to. Your VA compensation is protected from credit card debt, any type of bankruptcy judgment, but you may have to notify the courts that you're receiving VA benefits. While your disability is exempt from student loan debt, personally, I just waited until I became 100% and then the loan was discharged and I didn't have to pay anything. But to get a student loan discharge, you can't be in default. If you owe back taxes, they can't touch your VA check, but they can come after your spouse. You're also protected from debt related to healthcare that's outside the VA healthcare system. Your monthly VA check that's deposited into your bank account cannot be legally seized unless you're a fugitive of law. Number 2, VA debt. The VA is a lot less forgiving when you owe them money. Most of the time, you're going to have to pay them back unless you can prove a financial hardship. These are 2 words that if you're having financial problems, you need to become very familiar with. Before I became service connected for my disabilities, I used to go over to the VA hospital for treatment. As a result, I accumulated debt in the form of copays. As soon as I was awarded my VA disability compensation, the first thing I did was to mail the VA hospital a check for about $80. The very next month, the VA still took about $80 out of my check. But because I had a copy of the check and the invoice, I got my money back. The next thing you need to be on guard for is receiving large sums of money from the VA and you don't know why. While your first emotions might be shock or excitement, the best thing you can do is contact the VA. I'm gonna have a few stories for you today, so bear with me. When I was in college, my GI Bill had ran out before my last semester started. But the very next month, the VA sent me another check. I immediately called the VA and told them, hey, you overpaid me. The representative informed me that they was aware of the payment and that they were going to continue to pay me until I finished school. But for those of you that can't let go of the money, sooner or later the VA is going to withhold funds until they get all of their money back. If you find yourself in a situation similar to this, don't forget those 2 important words, undue hardship. But it's not enough just to say it, you have to prove it through evidence. Number 3, family obligations. For the focus of our discussion, we will be focusing on a veteran's duty to provide for his family or dependents. I'm a Texan, and like every state in the U.S., family law is governed by local parishes and counties. The Uniformed Services Former Spouses Protection Act exempts VA disability compensation from being garnished during a child support order. The same could be said for alimony because VA compensation is not considered a marital asset or community property that can be divided during a divorce. If your VA disability is your only source of income, it can be used to calculate the amount of support for child support and alimony. If for some reason you are unwilling or unable to pay your court-ordered child support, there are other options. An apportionment could be granted by the VA itself. The VA, acting as the judge, will review a submitted claim for an apportionment. If approved, part of your check will go to support your dependents, whether it be your wife, your children, or dependent parents. Unlike state courts, if the VA approves the apportionment, You have no recourse other than to file an appeal. Let's answer a few questions. How much of your VA disability compensation can be apportioned? Well, according to law, all or part of your check can be apportioned. If you don't believe me, all you have to do is go on va.gov and you can find the apportionment form there. And to find the actual law, you go to the Federal Veterans Law, Rules, and Regulations Manual, or you can Google it. Just search for 38 CFR 3.450 and watch my detailed video, VA compensation and child support. The second thing you need to know about an apportionment is who can apply for an apportionment. As I stated earlier, any dependent of a veteran can file for an apportionment. A spouse and children that are not living with you, or your dependent parents. Yes, if you have your parents on your benefits, they can file too. But they have to show that you're not properly providing for them. Now, how to protect yourself from an unjust apportionment. So we ask the question, when is an apportionment not justified? When you're already paying court-ordered child support. As I said in my last video, it happened to me. An apportionment request was put in against my VA compensation disability by the other parent. Then I immediately submitted evidence showing that I was current on my child support and that I had never been late. You would probably be surprised at the response that the VA gave me. I give full details on my other video on child support. But when it was over, the apportionment claim was dropped. Other things that will protect you: if the child was legally adopted, the other parent fails to show a financial need, the child is under the age of 18 but joins active duty military service, and the apportionment may cause an undue financial hardship. Number 4, reductions. These could include reduction in compensation amount or percentage rating. Issues that may result in a reduction of your compensation amount include military retirement pay offset, workers' compensation, dependent status change, and return to active duty military. Factors that would cause a rating reduction of your VA disability include incarceration and change of employment status. For those veterans paid at 100% as a result of IU or TDIU. IU stands for Individual Unemployability. If you are a military retiree and you are receiving 40% disability compensation from the VA, once you are granted a 50% disability rating or higher, the offset will be removed. If you are receiving workers' compensation, you need to notify the VA and go to va.gov to learn what your rights are. This is the most frequent problem that most veterans have, not informing the VA in the change of dependent status. For example, if you get a divorce, once the divorce is final, you need to submit a copy of your decree to the VA and have your spouse dropped as a dependent. You will continue to receive dependent pay for your children, even if they're not living with you. A fellow veteran told me an interesting story. I have never confirmed this, but he was 100% and his ex-wife was 100%, and they had a child together. One day he and his ex-wife was talking and they both realized that they were claiming the daughter as a dependent. According to him, when he notified the VA, they said that both of them had a right to the dependent pay. If you find yourself in a similar situation, the first thing you do is contact the VA. If you are incarcerated for 61 days on a felony, your VA compensation will be reduced. If your disability rating at the time of incarceration is more than 10%, you will be reduced down to 10%. However, if your disability rating is actually 10%, they will give you half of what your monthly pay is. My video, VA compensation and incarceration, will give you more details. Now, if you're receiving one of the two forms of individual unemployability, the first being called individual unemployability, which is a temporary rating, or the second one, which is a permanent rating, referred to as TDIU, and stands for Total Disability Individual Unemployability. Whether you have TDIU or IU, you cannot work without putting your 100% at risk. If you are a disabled veteran receiving disability compensation, before you make a decision to go back to active duty, you need to know what your options are. Contact the VA before re-enlisting to know what your options are. Number 5, losing your VA compensation altogether. There are 3 major factors that will stop your VA check altogether. The first one is your failure to submit evidence. Second one is failure to attend a CMP exam. And thirdly, submitting false evidence. When it comes to VA disability compensation, one of the biggest no-nos is not showing up to a compensation and pension exam, which is called a CMP exam. The number one thing you need to do is make sure that your mailing address is correct. And if the VA have sent you information saying that you have a CMP exam, you can't avoid it. You need to go to the exam. Depending on the purpose of the exam, you could be reduced or lose your benefits altogether. If you have a family or medical emergency, if you can, notify the VA. If not, when you recover, submit paperwork showing that you had an emergency. I know a fellow veteran who did not attend the CMP exam, and it took him 4 years before he got another one. The next thing, if the VA asks you for evidence, you need to gather your evidence and submit it. My video, How to File a VA Claim, Phase 1, gives you a step-by-step instruction on how to gather evidence for your claim. If needed, contact a service organization. The worst thing you can do when filing a VA claim is submit false information. Not only would this result in your claim being denied, you could also be charged with submitting a fraudulent claim to the VA under penalty of law. The best thing to do is to present as much accurate information as possible. The purpose of this video is to inform you in ways to protect yourself from the VA, from outsiders, and even your own bad decisions. If this video was informative, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click on the notifications for the next video.